Hear these words and have faith. Have faith. He lives in you. He lives in me. He watches over everything we see. have faith. He lives in you. He lives in me. He watches over everything you see. Into the waters, into the truth, in your reflection, He lives in you. Free, and a voice in the wind whispers, I am a Miller. Wait, there's no mountain too great. Hear these words and have faith. Oh, He lives in you. He lives in me. He watches over everything we see. Into the water, into the truth, in your reflection, He lives in you. He lives in you. He lives in you. He lives in me. He watches over everything you see. Into the water, into the truth, in your reflection. He lives in you. He lives in you. He lives in oh yeah. He lives in me. He watches over everything we see. Into the water, into the truth, in your reflection. He lives, He lives, He lives, He lives in you.
Good afternoon. If you're joining us, this is Election Central. My name is Cyrus Gray, and we're going to kick off our show. It's about 2 minutes after our start of time. Welcome to Election Central. Today, we're going to be having a host of interesting conversations. Our program today is divided into 2 segments. The first segment is going to deal with the recent published Census report, the controversy around the report, and how the report and the numbers therein impact the elections of October 2023. That will be the first section of our program. We'll have a couple of guests. Dan Saye, who was an executive of one of the political parties, Mavi. We will have Jonathan Say Tayo Bulake. He's an executive of the ANC. So So they are going to come and share their views. We're also going to have somewhere down the road a former executive of Elections Commission, Census Freeman. He's going to discuss the impact of elections. We look at the laws governing census, how they are used for elections, and we look at the particular situation of the elections of 2023. Later in the show, the second segment, we'll discuss pollution in Liberia in terms of the water quality. And we have Dan Sayo already be here. He used to be the technical managing director, deputy managing director of technical affairs at the Water and Sewer Corporation. So he's going to tell us about the water and sewer infrastructure, the level of their penetration in Liberia where they are covered. I've had recently to do some research and realized that prior to the war, water and sewer had facilities just about in every county in the country. So we want to find out to what extent they're involved there. There's also a major project that was funded by USAID that rehabilitated facilities, water and sewer facilities in 3 counties. We're going to talk about that. We're going to have as a guest in that segment also the head of the Watch Commission, Bobby Whitfield. He's going to join us and tell us what Watch is doing. I interacted with him significantly during the COVID pandemic. He was part of the emergency committee at the Liberia office. So he will tell us a little bit about how they are working towards clean water. So we'll pick up from there, but we'll come back. We'll start with the issue of the census. But I had promised in the intro to the program that we honor our spiritual band out of Lacey, Michigan. It's called the Spirituals. This is a band formed by L. Nelson some 60 years ago. They've been singing, elevating the voice of Negro struggle. They've announced that this is going to be their last year together and they're going to be hosting a concert. So we're going to run a few of their songs over the show. And I'll tell you what, as we get into the first segment, maybe we should start with one of your songs.
In the water, children wade. In the water, God said He's gonna jump in the water. Wade in the water, we may wade in the water, children wade. In the water, God's gonna jump in the water.
Thank you. That was the group of Spirituals. I'll tell you, as we wait for our guests, we'll jump immediately into the discussion of our program. Maybe I should give the background. As I said earlier, last year, the census, the population census was conducted. It was several years late. It should have been conducted in 2018, but it was not until last year that it was conducted. So the one prior to last year, census was done in 2008, and the Constitution requires that every 10 years a population census is done. The thing about population census is that it informs all the decisions that the country makes in terms of development decisions, because it captures population density and different demographics, numbers of males, numbers of females, the birth rate, and all is calculated on population census. But for the purpose of this discussion, we're going to be talking about the population census relative to elections. So as I say, as we wait for our 3 guests to begin the discussions, Let's go into the law. What does the law say about population census? So I'll go to the 1986 Constitution of Liberia, Article 80. I pick up two sections from Article 80, D and E, that deals with the population census. So after this, we'll go also to the election laws, what it says about the population census results. And as we view that, then we'll go to the actual population census and what the controversy that is currently going on is all about. So if you go to Article 80D, it says each constituency shall have an approximately equal population of 20,000, or such number of citizens as the legislature shall prescribe in keeping with population growth and the movements as reviewed by the National Census, provided that the total number of electoral constituencies in the Republic shall not exceed 100. Then E, immediately following a national census and before the next election, the Elections Commission should reapportion the constituency in accordance with the new population figures, so that every constituency shall have as close to the same population as possible, provided, however, that a constituency must be solely within a county. So there are two very essential elements of the Constitution that deals with what the population census, how it impacts electioneering. First, as you determine constituency, in the case of electioneering, is by district. So in our legislature, each constituency is a district, and that district has one legislator that is elected for that district. So those numbers, the number of legislators, that's also the number of constituency in a county, which also determines the number of representatives, is determined by the population gathered from the population census. And according to the Constitution, the magic number is 20,000 or roundabout. The legislature is in power to make some flexibility, close to 20,000. So if by that logic, the population of a particular county increases by 100,000, then just fundamentally it requires 5 sets of 20,000. 5 sets of 20,000 meaning they are eligible to get 5 more constituency or 5 more districts, because one person represents 20,000. In the second component, what it's saying is that once census is completed, the Elections Commission is now empowered to reapportion the districts in such a way as to reflect the census results. You may know that we're around 7 months from elections, and our census have just been released. I don't know what's happening at the Elections Commission. Already there are questions about the integrity or the credibility of the census. So we're going to come to that as we get our guests, so we discuss it. But let's move to the next set of laws. The next set of laws deal with the election laws. Under the election laws, I pick chapter 4.1, voting precincts. It said the commission shall describe and, as far as practicable, delineate on a map voting precincts in each constituency. The number of registered voters in every precinct should be approximately equal, and unless the commission in any particular case will determine the number of registered voters in the precinct shall not exceed 2,000. We'll get some explanation about that more. And polling places. The commission should designate polling places in each constituency to serve the voting precincts. Polling places should have separate compartments constructed so as to protect each voter from observation while it's making the ballot papers. Each polling place should be provided with transparent ballot boxes which can be sealed. Then representative of polling places to ensure fair and impartial democratic election. Any registered political party or any individual candidate shall appoint a representative to attend any polling place with sufficient identification in any constituency in a voting precinct in which the party has nominated candidates or in which the independent candidate is a candidate. Any such appointment shall be made in a form to be prescribed by the commission, and a copy thereof shall be sent to the magistrate of elections not later than 2 weeks before the election. Okay, as we go into the details of the impact of census, we're going to talk about this a little bit. So let me come to the census numbers. I'm laying the ground before we begin the discussion so we understand it. The last, the census that has just been completed, done in November 2023, these are the numbers that reflect the census. If you look at it, there was a population growth based on the census across all the counties, which should be expected. But the largest population growth is in Grand Crew County. So the population grew, according to the census, by 89%, almost double. The next is River G County, 87%, almost double. The next is Grand Gita County, 73%, also almost double. The next is Muscarato County, 72%, also almost double. Then Bomi County, 59%, Sino, 47%, Mangibi, 45%, Kibmount, 41%, and the rest of the counties, Bong, Nima, Lofa, Grand Bassa, were in the 30 percentile, and then Maryland, 27%. And the slowest growing county was Bakolo County, with a population growth of 15%. There is another more explicit slide I like to pull out that compares 2008 to 2022. And let's see if we can find that. Data sheet, back. Let's see if we can find that. Okay, this is it. If you look at that table, it shows 2 columns in the middle that have the actual numbers that were counted in each of the 15 counties. So, for example, in Muscarato County, the 2008 census showed 1,118,241. And then 2022, 1,920,788. So that's why it's showing a huge increase. If you look at the lowest level where you see Grand Crew, 89%, they had a population in 2008 as 57,913. And that population almost doubled in 2022 to 109,342. Apart from the controversy surrounding ledges going into the census, most of the claims that have been currently made about the election is that the numbers don't pan out. I mean, the notion is that in the Southeast, the counties are smaller. There are less people living there, and many people are struggling to grapple with the increase in population. In what we say, it's 15 years, 2018 to 2022. 2008 to 2022, 15 years, the population increased almost double. Now, in my estimation, it's hard to say whether this is this is not the fight, except that there were issues with impropriety. People were fired alleged in the 11th hour. There were claims that funds allocated for the census was being misappropriated. But even as it may, it's just not clear if to just make a blanket assumption that in fact these numbers are not correct. I know there are also claims by people that they were not counted, that they never saw any numerators coming to the house to count them. So we're going to look at, assuming these numbers are going to be used for the current elections, the October elections, what do they mean? How do they apply? And we'll come back in a short while, and then we'll open a discussion about that. I hope by then our guests will be here. So let's get back to the group, the spirituals, to give us another number.
Higher you build your barriers, the taller I become. The further you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can't deny me, you can't decide to turn your face away. Something inside so strong, I know that I can make it. Though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong.
The more you refuse to hear my voice, the louder I will sing.
I will sing loud.
Hide behind walls of Jericho. Your lights will come tumbling.
Deny my face.
Deny.
My light
will shine
so brightly it will blind you. Something inside so strong.
something inside. Though you're doing me wrong, you thought that my pride. Oh no, 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 no.
Something inside
So strong.
inside so strong.
They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, a warrior, more than a survivor. You can thrive, transformed by adversity. You face every challenge, throw your way, stand strong, you can overcome. They try to beat us down, but we rise above the struggle. Never giving up under pressure, we don't struggle. Instead, we discover gold inside as we realize no matter what, you'll never dull our shine.
Deny my place inside. Just wonder where that's
Oh, will shine
so brightly it will blind you. Something inside so strong.
know that I, though you're doing me wrong, you thought that my pride. No, no.
Something inside so strong.
There's something inside me.
Inside so strong.
Wow. Yeah, that was the group, the spirituals. like I said, this is going to be their last year together after 6 years. I hope we did them some justice by sharing their story with our audience. Now, let's get back to the discussion of the impact of the census on elections. Earlier, I brought in some items of line items on the election laws. So let's first look at uh, how the census may impact the creation of new constituencies. So we'll switch this table. So if you look at most of the argument that's been made is that guess what? The southeastern counties, their numbers have been so manipulated that it may provide for them to get additional members of the House of Representatives. Well, if we are following the Constitution, then that's a possibility. Because look at Grand Creek County. So Grand Creek County gained about, say, 40, 45, 50,000 more votes. I mean, counts, more persons. So if you take 220,000 from it, that means they get to gain 2 more representatives. By that logic, look at Massarato County. So Massarato County already have 17 representatives. So if you look at the number increment in Massarato County, it's about almost 80,000 or a little over 80,000. So that means if we're following the 20 number as the magic number, that every 20% is 1 representative, then that means Massarato gets 4 more representatives. Now, under the Constitution, we cannot exceed 100 representatives in the legislature. So I know here and there, in fact, there isn't an equity even in the apportioning of these representatives based on constituency, because if you look at election results previously, there are cases where some counties, especially the small counties, have representatives who come from districts that have less than 10,000 people. Now, even in their elections, there are representatives who, with just 2,000, 3,000 votes, were able to win their seats. Whereas districts in Massarato County, for you to win a seat, you got to be around 7,000, 8,000, because the number of registered voters in that district, I'm not even talking about the population, the registered voters in that district is on the average of 20,000 people. So it'll be interesting to see how the legislature, I understand it's the legislature that does the apportioning, how they're going to do the math to determine that based on the census, which county get how much more representative. We know we have 73 representatives right now. So that means there's 17 representatives spaces for the grabs if they're going to be filling all the 100 out in this term. So I'm gonna watch and see how that plays out. But where I'm a lot more interested, and I think a lot of people are interested, is how is this number going to impact the votes in October election. So for us to understand that, we need to understand how the voting is done. So in the case of representative elections, the voting is done based on the eligible voters in the district. The most important element of that exercise is the voters' roll. And the voters' roll is created as a result of voters' registration. So if you are reading earlier, you're required to register where you live, the district where you live. I know there are many cases where people truck voters to districts where there are lesser people because they think they can blow their number up. I think it's an impropriety that, in fact, has been condoned and tolerated by the Elections Commission. I think they should do something about it. But one, you vote in a district, and the voting is based on the voters' roll. The voters' roll is a result of voters' registration. So the voters' roll and the census are two separate things. In some countries, once the census is done and there's good data gathering about, for example, in the United States, everybody that's born is given a social security card. So from the onset, there's a system that knows who's alive, what their ages are here and there. Census just come to validate those numbers over time. So there's not voters registration that is done as it were. There's not voters registration that is done. So when you reach voting age, normally you begin to receive your voting material so that you can vote. It is those countries where their systems are developed in a way that the citizens automatically are flagged during election period because there is a record, a registry of the citizens. I know some attempts were done on the last administration to create a national registry. There have been some arguments why is the Elections Commission doing voters registration when in fact the national registry should be empowered to do a proper registration of the citizens in a way that they can be able to extract or extrapolate elections or registry numbers for the election circle. But right now, that's not the case. The elections commissions conduct the voters registration. If you've been following Liberia, that exercise is about to start. I think they're starting with the first few counties, 6 counties, March this month. And then sometime after April or so, they will start with the other counties. What that basically is that the country is divided into voting precincts and then voting places in the precinct. Each voting precinct, those who register there are those who want to vote there. So, and as we discuss this, I want you to keep in the back of your mind the notion of the census and its impact to voting. We talk about the census as it impacts the creation of most seats in the legislature. But now we're talking about how it impacts the vote. So generally, the census has no impact on the vote because it is not the census figures that are being used for voting purposes. The voting purposes for voting purposes is the voters registration. That is the key determinant. So during the voters registration, each person is expected to go to a particular point, provide evidence of their citizenship, whether be it in the passport or national ID card or whatever documents that the authorities have said are appropriate. And then their photo will be taken, their fingerprint will be taken, and the card will be issued. I said fingerprints because previously it was basically a manual procedure where your fingerprints would be punched on a card. But this time, the Elections Commission has gotten the funding and they support to do a biometric. So they will collect your bio data and put it in the system. If they do it well, it should reduce the duplication because the fingerprints in the system is unique. It's a unique identifier. So, voter registration. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Sorry, I can hear you, but I can't see you. I mean, you're fine. I mean, the voice is good. You want to remain in that?
Well,
that's all right. You can work on it. Look,
I'm wondering why my camera is not coming on. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, so we're to make sure the voice doesn't go away. So let's keep talking while you're trying to figure the camera. Is that okay?
Well, no problem.
Yeah, but guess what? You are live on the show, Election Central, and we started the first segment already. I was giving an overview of the numbers coming out of the census. I don't know whether you have an opportunity to look at the screen where we are.
I'm looking at your screen. I'm seeing what you have there.
Okay, that's good. So I'll go back to the actual tabulation, the table that's showing the numbers that came out of the census. So I did a basic overview of what the census is. and then the controversy around the census. So now that you're here, uh, I would like you to just say a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into the discussion. I'm not going to cut in. Say a little bit of yourself and tell us what your impression about the census that was done, based on what you know and what's going on. So welcome, Dan Sayer, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dan Sayer.
Well, it's a pleasure joining you on this. Reasons I haven't actually placed sufficient concentrations on the details of the statistics that have been developed by the censor. But I know there's something that is more troubling, and that is the negative conversation that has been in the media about the overall, organization of the censor and how the census is being discussed, and the public feedback about the overall census, how it's been conducted in the country. I think those are troubling development. But census generally is important for every country. It's important for several reasons: economic planning, development planning, allocation of resources, and other things and so forth. So census is a very important tool. And in most cases, in most cases, it's also used for election purposes, determining population movement across the country and so forth. And for unscrupulous, contenders in elections, they use it for bad reasons. Sometimes they do allocations of numbers in places. In the United States, they call it gerrymandering. People do gerrymandering because they have special interest and they want to make sure that they allot numbers in places that they have interest. Today, that kind of situation is emerging in our country, and the way it is emerging is emerging in our country in a way where people want to give themselves advantage over other contenders in the forthcoming elections, which is becoming like an early establishment of structures to temper with the outcome of the elections, and that's why many politicians, development actors are very concerned. In this case now, it's politicians that are very concerned about the numbers in places that are obscure, that are difficult to reach. The numbers emulating from there, is troubling. It's troubling because people know that the variables that are now emerging shows that public approval for performance of the current government in urban terrains is getting very terrible, and so there seems to be some level of effort to shift, numbers in obscure terrains where they think, they can use the ignorance of the population there to be able to give themselves advantageous positions in the elections. And for that, we all should be concerned about what is happening and how that is likely to affect the outcome of the elections, to affect the peace of the country, and to give undue advantage to the ruling party in the election. So I think it is very important that we all discuss it. A few political parties the other day made a pronouncement, and I think I support their actions. It is important that we start to look at these elections now from the early stages. Not many people think that elections can be won from the very beginning. It's not on the day that people cast a ballot that election is actually won. It's the way the overall processes are held right now. Not many people have received information on voters' education. We should be going into a new voting system, which is the biometric system. It's a complicated system. Countries that have started, they still have not been able to overcome the real mechanics of the use of biometric. And today we are planning and preparing in 7 months to use biometric in our country. Those are plenty issues. The way people are assigned in the elections before uh, the beginning of 2021, the commission at the National Election Commission that will be responsible to manage and handle the affairs of the elections was already appointed, and that is very troubling. You know, the person who got his appointment is a person that was in controversy at the election commission. In fact, was accused of tampering with figures, with numbers at the election commission. So those are foundations that the CDC has been putting in place. I was in country when the referendum was held, which stood up tall against the referendum because Mr. Weir was trying to outsmart the Liberian people. He wanted to have issues about using a 1 year step down in the tenure of the presidency to say yes, he believed in short tenure for presidency, but then he will have served for like 3 terms.
That's 3 terms, bro.
This term, and at the time that election will be held will be like the beginning of his 2 terms, and we stood against it. That was defeated. That was the first agenda they put in place to start to win the elections. So there are processes towards winning these elections. How do people protect their votes? How the census data get to be, look at very carefully so that the numbers that have been put here, people don't utilize the number to make sure that they rob the elections out of fair winners of the election. So yeah, the census is very key and it's important for the purpose of these elections and subsequently for development purposes. The data are very good.
Okay, sorry, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, I pick up a couple of things that you said. First, you alluded to somebody in the commission who was already flagged for fooling around with data. I mean, I wouldn't mask this. This is a floor siren, right? He was made a commissioner, right? So we recognize that. Then the issue of biometrics. So there's the one correction here. The biometrics, according to the Elections Commission, is going to be used for voters registration. It's not going to be used to vote. You understand the distinction? Sorry, we lost Sorry for a minute, but he talked about the biometrics. The biometrics is going to be used in the voters registration, but the voting will go on the same way. They will issue you a ballot paper, and you will go behind the curtain and you fill it out, and you will put in the box before everybody else. Yeah, he made a point about the perception about ledges that conducted the perception of ledges that conducted the census, and how there were issue of impropriety. I think 2 ledges senior officials were relieved of the job in the 11th hour. For me, it's hard to say whether these numbers are right or wrong. I wanted us to go into some of the details of the numbers, the disparities. Say we didn't do the counting, but since I have Saye now, so I wanted us first to clear the field of some of the perception. Saye, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So here's the deal. The biometrics. The biometrics that the Elections Commission has pushed for. Yes, I think they pushed it on the people too quickly. The whole procurement process and all that were clouded with all kinds of suspicion. But the biometrics is only going to be used for voters registration. So let's see how that pans out. So practically what they're saying is that they will be able, by using the unique identifier through the fingerprints, to make sure that the voters' roll will not be duplicated. I mean, there will be only one person per identity in the voters' roll. Then during the elections in October, people will vote the same old way they voted the last time. Having been registered through biometrics during this registration period, you will be issued your voter's card, and during the election, you will go to your polling place, get identified, and then you will vote the same old way they did it last time. So do you see any problem with that?
Well, I think one of the problems is, look, sometimes in most cases when you want to address a situation, you try to use precedent. If it is not in your jurisdiction, but precedent in other jurisdictions. There was some side talk that I followed. I think it came to reality in Nigeria. The same company that was there with that did their biometrics, somebody found a way. I think the ruling party or the contending party that was so powerful managed to get in contact with the same company, and they did the same kind of data that they did for the state. Now, you had a situation where the overall procurement process here was marked with controversy or with ambiguity and other kinds of circumstances that created doubt over who did it and whether the person who did it is a person with credibility or a company with credibility. Now, under that kind of circumstances, you never tell what's going to happen because there's so much of desperation in the game. Two, at the top of the election commission, the chairperson that has been designated to manage the election um, come with character question with previous elections that he presided over when he served as a technician in the data room. Today, he's the chairperson. He will be responsible to manage the elections. I do not know how he was selected, whether on the basis of his competence or experience or what and so forth. But first of all, to having to have had that history, and he's been elected for this elections to preside over the election, those are all red flags that we should all be concerned about. And so,
Sorry, can you clarify that for me? So Flo Saye is the guy. He's a
yes,
member. He's a member of the commission, right?
yes,
Are
yes,
you saying in the commission he has been designated as the one who's going to preside over the election?
yes, indeed. This is something we raised before. In fact, in 2021, we raised the issues. He is the one being designated to preside over these 2023 elections. I don't know if they have changed that, but he has been the one since 2021 that
So that's
was
how it's
designated.
done. That Gano Floor was the manager for the data, right? And then
Yeah,
then
no matter what they do when the election is coming, one commissioner is giving the responsibility to manage or to oversee the process. The chairperson of the election commission, is the overall supervisor. But the election they treat it like a project. So somebody is there giving the responsibility to manage that, and he does the coordination and other thing with the chairpersons and other members of the commission.
So what kind of recourse do the political parties have? Because there's a clear question here of integrity, even if it was, in fact, not that it was not. I think there was some investigation about numbers changing that the floor was involved in, but yet he was appointed as commissioner. I don't know what was the outcry. Where if there
Well,
was
there were contentions raised, but in our political terrain, some people raise the issues in no time, they drop them, and Floyd suffice, despite of the contentions that was raised by opposition political parties. But I think for me, we should have no reason to think that it's something that we should forget. I think there's a motive for having to serve as chairman to preside over the elections, and given the growing level of the desperation that is boiling in the camp of the incumbent, we all have to be careful. We should start reflecting some of these kind of experiences that we have had with elections in the country and within particularly serving in the data room and now being given the responsibility to take charge of managing the elections.
so in your experience, Saye, what kind of recourse are there to be able to address this?
I
think
think I
the
think
political
for
parties
me,
are members of some kind of stakeholder or a group of the elections commission. Don't the political parties have the latitude to demand that such a person who has been claused be removed
that
from
is
that
that
particular
that
role?
is a demand because it's not speculation. That's facts. That is issue that was discussed in the country, not even at the election commission. And I think political parties should come together first of all to send that alert to the government that they are serious about the elections, and they do not think that kind of man, somebody like Floyd now, is a good material to preside over the elections, given the history that is associated with his work at the election commission. I don't think it will be a good decision for our country. And Floyd himself, even if he doesn't intend to do that, the suspicion hangs still over him. And if anything happens at the election commission, there'll be no way that people will now reference his previous actions, to justify any disruption that may emerge at the election commission if people feel that the process was not fair, was not transparent, and so forth. So if I were him, I would recuse myself. And that is what people do in civilized,
But
terrain.
it doesn't seem to be taking that option. And one of the things I observe is in Liberia, we don't like to do the heavy work, right? There are the political parties are either the beneficiaries or the victims of any impropriety at the elections commission. The job the elections commission is doing, they're refereeing the elections. Doesn't it make sense right now why these suspicions hang instead of just talking about it, that they make a formal complaint to the elections commission to the extent that they are ready to make that complaint to the court to effect the removal of flaw from that particular rule because of the suspicion? Because the elections commission is not only an integrity institution, but it has to be perceived to be one of integrity. So you make the point, you can't go into the election when people suspecting that the people in the place they know that they will cheat, and then even if they are not doing it, that means something should be done to take that cloud away. So I would think, officials at the elections commission, or not the elections commission, the political parties who have these concerns, some of which are real concerns, should formalize those concerns with the intent of making sure that the flaw is removed from that rule. There are, I think, 7 commissioners, right?
Well, like you rightly said, between you and myself, in a society that want to demonstrate that they're ready for transparency, first of all, the commission itself should not have made a decision to allow flaw to preside over any elections, especially these elections. 2, flaw should not have been appointed to sit at the commission, given the fact that that issue, was raised and he was believed to have been involved into it. 3, the political parties should not sit at this point and still say, "Oh, you know what? Even though they said it, but it might not happen." That's not a justification, because what people are waiting for, given the fact that that particular record hangs around him, is to wait for the result. If the result don't favor, then that particular issue will come. It will play out in the elections. So why wait until things happen before opposition parties come out? It's about time now that parties come out to say, "Hey, you know what? Hey, this person has done this, and the issue is serious relative to the transparency and the fairness of our election. So we cannot allow him to do that." The 4th thing is, institutions are just weak because the election law is very strong. There are mechanisms for redress on these kind of issues in the elections law. I'm sorry that the election law is not before me right now, but political party can take advantage of that and demand that, no, we cannot work with this person because of these credentials.
That's precisely my point. Just talking about it wouldn't help, because even if they make the case formally to the elections commission and the elections commission does not take heed, they have the courts. They have recourse with the court to make a case for a flaw to be moved aside. So let's move beyond that. I wanted to ask you, because we own the impact of the census, on the actual elections, and you raised a couple of points. I wanted us to flag a few things so that we don't leave an impression that something is the way it is not. Let me ask you some direct questions, right?
Yeah.
First thing, the census does not affect the voting. Am I correct?
The censor in part does.
Tell me how.
The censor created numbers. The number will be used for people to vote. The number may be.
But sorry, that's not correct. The
No,
numbers-
are coming. The number are allotted to terrains, and there are people who will go to conduct the voter registration processes across the country. And these non-existent numbers may also still be recorded for voter registration and for voting. And
Okay, so let's take that. Let's say that because the census has shown a county to increase by 89%, like in the case of Grand Cru, right?
yeah.
So a lot more, at least 89% more documents will be carried there for people to register, assuming
For
there are a
people to
lot more
register.
people here, right? So if those people are not there, your argument is that it provides an opportunity for them, for whomever involved in impropriety, to create fake people in those numbers and register them, right?
Precisely.
So let's assume that is the case. How does that translate to votes during the actual voting?
Because
I mean, you have an experience with the voting process.
Yeah, because in the first place, human beings will go out there to do the registration. And these numbers will be captured in the voter roll. And those who are doing what they're doing, they may have learned. I was just giving you, I'm not too clear on our experience in Nigeria, but I know everybody knows that the biometric will have fault. It will have fault, especially in rural parts where you don't have that much and stronger internet. You don't have electricity for gadgets and other things that they're carrying to work all the time. And so there'll be justification. Those kind of justification, those who will manage with the election will have a way to justify them, to explain them.
Justify what? That's what I'm trying to get.
That they will capture numbers. They will capture people who will be considered as voters
during the voters registration.
Yes, I mean, you're talking about biometric.
I grant that, right? So let's assume for Grand Cru County, I'm going to use that as an example without no connotation. Or say Mussurado County, because Mussurado County population, according to the census, increased by 72%, right?
Yes, yeah.
So let's say on the basis of that increment by 72%, that much more registration paper is sent out into the field. So even if the number may not be correct, it provided an opportunity for the magistrates who are doing the registration to fill out some paperwork for people who do not exist, right?
Yeah.
So the voters' roll have been padded.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use some hypothetical numbers. For example, in the first 2017 elections, the total eligible voters was about 2.18 million, right? During that election, 1.6 million people voted. So that means a significant amount of people, about maybe 500,000 persons, were not represented between registration and voting, right?
Yeah.
The point I want to make is, in 2017, in spite of the fact there were 2.18 million registered voters, data collected from registration, only 1.6 million people actually voted. So let's assume that projections are made, more papers are sent out around the country on account of the census figure, and people scrupulously register a whole lot of people. How do these people get to vote during the voting time in October? That's the point I'm trying to make, because the
look, first of all, here's what I think you have to understand. The election laws has processes to make sure that all these particular leakages don't affect the outcome of elections. One, the law says before elections, hospitals, police stations, courts must provide statistics on, for example, police station, how many people are incarcerated that may have been checked in previous years, but that have been in prison now that may not be able to vote in this year. The hospital should provide information on death, people who died in the period. Those statistics are never provided in our elections. So, in any case, anyone who wants to tamper with the elections, they have way to do that because those numbers can still be used. Secondly, since we are using biometric, you never go into right now, the immigration does not have statistics on how many people coming in the country. There are a lot of illegal businesses, mining and other things taking place in the region, the southeastern region. In Grangida, they talk about Burkina. Metric doesn't show you that this man is from this country. They will
So Dan, you just struck a point. So what you're suggesting now, there is a possibility that numbers that have come out of the census showing a balloon in voters in a certain region and more registration papers are carried there. These people could be filled by people who are not eligible to vote.
Who are not eligible voters, who are not Liberians.
But there will be real people, right?
There will be real people.
Okay. So that's a whole different ball game because I mean the system is not designed for people at the registration period to determine who actually is a citizen or not. It's not about census again.
I mean, so political parties don't have the resources to track and monitor or to be everywhere where they'll say, oh, you know what, the person is a citizen. I have been in places monitoring elections, and people say after the voter roll, go and challenge the voter roll, go and audit the voter roll. People don't even have the time to go and check that out. People don't have
the voter roll was checked by the Supreme Court in that Bromskin proceedings. And
no, when they do voter registration. When they do voter registration, they put the voter roll up for challenge.
For people to go and validate.
For people to go to validate.
But I think they do that in Liberia, they do it.
No, they do it. I'm saying people barely go there to go and do that challenge. That's an attitude that I know I follow. People
it's my thing. And that's something I really want your view on because sometimes the elections at some point will go on, right? And as much as we like to flag things that don't look right, we also have to be careful not to cast doubt unduly on the system.
Yes.
Because some of the processes may be flawed. But you and myself went through the election process. The election process is really rudimentary. The first thing we got to agree on first, the election, actual voting is not biometric. It's the same paper voting, right? So by the time the Elections Commission determined all the polling places, last year it was about 5,300 polling places. Under the election laws, only 550 persons can vote per polling place.
Yeah.
Those 550 persons' names will be cast up. I try to capture a picture of it here because I like, look, if I want to make flour, for example, if you look there, you will see that there's one example, I think, somewhere in the district in Monrovia before the elections, they put the 550 persons' pictures and their name up to the place they are voting. So during election day, sometime after this exercise, you're going to walk over there, show your voter's card that you obtained from the voter's registration. They validate it, and then you go get your ballot. You vote, and when you vote, you put it in a transparent box right there where all the observers are supposed to be. Transparent box, and then they mark your finger. And then you walked out. When that exercise ends that day, with the observers still sitting there looking at the boxes, the election workers there will pull each ballot one by one, and it is checked in front of everybody. And they fill out that tally sheet, show the number who won, who second, who third. They peel the top sheet out, keep it for the Elections Commission, peel the second sheet, give it to the first place man, peel the third sheet, give it to the second place man, and then stick the other sheet on the wall for everybody to copy or take pictures of it. Now, why am I practicalizing this? Because I'm looking at the question about the census, which is one thing, because the census could be used for elections, for other things. If the data is wrong, it will misinform a lot of things. But how does it really impact the elections? Because the actual voting process is the check on the validity of the voter's roll. So is it possible that once at the voting station, I'm assuming whether there are 10,000 or 5,000 polling places, all the stakeholders will have the people there to verify that nobody voted that shouldn't have voted. Or if they voted, we register it immediately. Yeah, go ahead.
Sarah, our communities are so remote, and in the last 5 years, most of the county got cut off. Roads are no longer good for people to get to their places, to see family people, or to reach out to districts, to reach out to towns that they should be reaching. Where you're going to have the problem and where the connections come in relative to the census report is that it's good that, yeah, we use it biometric, but I'll tell you one thing, people who are not eligible voters will be made to register. Hello?
Yeah, I'll listen to you then. Go ahead.
Now, in most cases, people who are not eligible to register to vote because of the balloon you have in the census report in these places, they could be made. Now, most of our people in those villages that you find that live in those towns, they're not concerned about who else is coming to register or who faces that. They go first of all to look for their own name. It's themselves. They go there, they see themselves, they are okay, they're moving on. They do not have the sophistication to audit that role and say, hey, this person doesn't live in our town. What their name or what their face is doing here. They do not have that capacity. And I doubt political parties also have that capacity, and they should develop that. Because if they want to make sure that they protect their votes, they need to do that. Once it's biometric, people who are non-citizens, who are hiding in these bushes in the forest and involved into all kinds of things across our communities and villages, could be used to become eligible voters, and they will register. Their names will be there. Now, the second aspect that you can check, like you talk about the practicalization of how the process works, is true. But yeah, I say, when we were most time involved with checking at the bulk checking place, that's where you have problem. When they do at the individual precincts or voting places, they put all together to go and do bulk checking. At that bulk checking place, sometimes when people do the checking, the individual people who do the collections of the tally sheets from those places, normally they don't get together at the, how they call it, war room or whatever they call it, to do a comprehensive consolidation of their tallies across communities and places where they've done their tallies.
So you're suggesting, Sai, that at some point the actual numbers that will be collected at the polling places may turn out to be different from the numbers that end up at the elections commission, because
when they do the bulk checking, oh yeah, sometimes that what people, in most cases, sometimes that's what they do.
How do we fix that? I mean, I think people
so
who
what
are
people need to do is, first of all,
have a responsibility to make sure that
so they need to put in place system of comprehensive coordination. That
who need to do that?
The political parties need to do that. The political parties should be the one that should be concerned about protecting their votes. In a region, they must have people who are there serving as coordinator and picking up all the tally sheets. Now, the one way they can do it, and the way they can do it is people get done with it, since a cell phone is common now in almost everywhere, but not everybody who may be involved in the process will have a camera phone. Take a picture and send it to the coordinator, and you assemble all the tally and make sure. So as people do the bulk checking in wherever they're going to do it, you can have your own people somewhere and doing the tallying, so that you make sure that you check against what they're doing. But beyond that, we should make sure that we have people, opposition political parties should make sure that they have people who will follow the transfer of the tallies from districts to where the bulk checking will be done.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. So in closing, I think we've exhausted a lot of things, but I still don't see yet how the census figures will be able to change the outcome of the elections if the actual of voting is done well.
Probably.
Go ahead, Dan. Hello.
Yeah, you getting me?
I didn't get you just now. I'm getting you now.
Okay, I'm saying there is a significant influence of what the outcome will look like relative to the census report. The numbers reported and allotted to counties are not practical relative to people who reside in those counties. The extra number could be managed for obvious reasons pertaining to the elections. And those numbers are the numbers that people will use. And since biometric will be used in the voter registration process, they will obviously get people who they know very well are not eligible to vote, but they will get them because there has to be a fingerprint. And so they will get those kind of people to get involved. And that's where political parties should be very careful about who is in what place that they're going to have, because even they may have people there, but those people could be also bribed. So you must have trusted people who will be in those places to do it. People who you believe in your cause and so forth should be in those places, because given that people are preparing themselves to make sure that they monitor and protect their votes, the tally sheets and other things and so forth. The other people, the ruling party may be thinking about also finding a lot of money to bribe people there to make sure that their tally sheets are not delivered to their coordinators.
Okay, Dan. Okay, I think you've given us a good bit of food for thought on this matter. It sounds to me like more work to be done than you can imagine. So the parties, the political parties, the stakeholders have to take cognizance of this. There are a couple of things. We got our issue with the commissioner who is in question. I think there's no reason why by now they are not raising a formal complaint for him to be stepped aside if it's true that he's actually presiding over the actual election, just so that it takes away that perception of impropriety. So, audience, look, we've been talking about the impact of the 2022 census on elections in our first segment. In a short while, we're going to switch to discuss the second segment of discuss what's in the second segment of our program, and that's about preventive health in Liberia, the challenge of water availability, groundwater pollution, garbage spills, and what's been done in Liberia by the Water and Sewer, by the WASH Commission, and other private parties in trying to address this as much as possible in view of our special circumstance. Fortunately, I have two of the guys who are knowledgeable about this. Dan, Sai worked with Water and Sewer for a couple of years. He's been out of there for a few years now. He was deputy managing director for technical. Dan, is that correct?
Yes, deputy managing director.
For technical, okay. And Bobby Whitfield is with the WASH Commission. He is the head there. He's the CEO. He's going to be with us in a few seconds. We're going to discuss water and water pollution. So I will put these guys in the back for a while, and then we'll do a quick intro, and then we'll start that discussion.
At first glance, the beach off Liberia's vast West Point settlement seems like paradise, until you look closer. The sand is covered in trash. Children play between mounds of detritus, hurling jars of old hair product into the waves. Many here and across Liberia's capital, Monrovia, say a lack of waste management has become a full-blown crisis.
They get the garbage from their homes, they take it to the beach as a place of dump site.
Archie Bize is a West Point resident and community activist. He says it's a serious health hazard and a threat to marine life.
But our capacity in terms of addressing these situations are somehow limited, very limited. And central government is in no way having a kind of mindset or in any sort of a form to come and address the kind of plight we are faced with as community people.
However, removing the rubbish is currently a challenge. There are only 3 designated dump sites in Monrovia and just a few garbage trucks with sporadic collection times. Mayor of Monrovia, Jefferson Koigi, says there are plans to expand the truck fleet and make collections regular. 120 waste monitors have also been hired for the worst affected areas. He says everyone needs to get involved.
I don't find comfort in presiding over a dirty city. I don't find pleasure in being questioned about your city being disorganized. But it is not me. It is not me. It is circumstances beyond unforeseen circumstances. And those circumstances is contingent on the shared and collective responsibility and understanding of we.
Well, I'd like to welcome Bobby Whitfield. That was a sequel, just giving an idea of some of the challenges that we're facing in Liberia with disposal of waste. The emphasis on that Al Jazeera report was mainly on dirt. That report is a little older. Maybe a lot more has been done. But it's common knowledge that we have a major challenge in Liberia in disposing of waste. I'm happy to have with me Bobby Whitfield. He's head of the WASH Commission. He's been involved heavily with work in Liberia. In fact, during the pandemic, I worked with USAID and I've seen him operate with all the COVID relief issues and all the response, water stations all around. I mean, I didn't have the time to say thank you for the good work you guys did. But Bobby, welcome. If you can just start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself, and then we can get rolling.
Good evening, Osiris. It's always a pleasure to join you, and it's great to have you back on radio, Election Spectre. I remember 27 when you hosted me to talk about the election, and it's great to have you back all here in the business. I think that Dan is online as well, right? I so.
Yeah, Dan is also here. I don't know why, but now he can't show his face to us, but we'll listen to his voice.
Not sure why he's not showing his face, but we'll catch him later. It's a pleasure. It's great to join you. To write for the interviews. I'm Bobby Whitfield, and the head of the WASH sector. Our role is really to regulate the WASH sector. When I say head, the institution was formed when His Excellency President George Monrovia took office in 2018. 8 months into his first year in office, he wasted no time, most of the political courage to bring about what we call WASH governance. Without WASH governance, there was no way Liberia will be seeing the incremental, progress that is being made now in the WASH sector. But with WASH governance, we can now see, some changes in the positive direction. So, yes, the head of the National Water Sanitation Hygiene Commission, WASH Commission for short, we regulate the sector, we provide leadership, coordinate the sector. Coordinating the sector involves bringing all of the private sector together to know their responsibilities, their rules in the WASH sector, but also working with the international donors and development partners and ensuring that where government cannot reach, we are coordinating with them, strategically engaging with them to ensure that we're meeting those challenges, mitigating those challenges, and ensuring services to our people.
Thank you, Bobby. Dan, do you want to say something about this water issue before we go forward? And I would like somewhere down the road for you to give us the architecture of the Water and Sewer Corporation as you knew it when you were there? What kind of capacity they have? What are the systems? Do we have water plants? Where do we serve?
Well, I think the fight is that there are um, legal sufficient legal instruments to make sure that the sector is professionally managed. Um, I think where we have problem is the inadequacy of the exercise of the professional skills and knowledge to make sure that the sector is fully served. Both sanitation and water. We have serious problem disposal management, um, and the overall water system, sewage system, how it should be managed. We have a broken, for example, sewage system since the war up to now. The stabilization pump, for example, that is behind the mansion around where you have the Busse quarter today, it is still yet to be fixed. The other one in Claro Town, the same situation is yet to be fixed. And some of those pumps are like 200,000-300,000 that you need to fix them. That's why you have the pollution, because those pumps are supposed to propel the waste to move over into the FIAMA waste, accumulation center. But we're not being able to do that. And at the waste disposal and management area, people are generating the waste, and our disposal mechanism and system is still also just too weak. At the level of the water, we have problem with the infrastructure need to be revamped. It was built to serve certain population. We have had a kind of expansion in our population. Cities, the overpopulations of Mosurado. Let me not say Monrovia, because Painesville and other cities are there and so forth. So today we are using a system that in any case need to be also modernized, because they were small, so they have just one straight direct line running from the White Plain to come to Monroe to serve. Right now you need different kind of units and system to make sure that the water is structured in a way, is accounted for, it's further cleaned before getting to the end user for them to be able to use it. All the different structures are not in proper conditions, are not fit. The cities people build just uncontrollably and build on top of pipes and sewage line and disrupt the movement of waste, to where the waste should be going. So you have all the different challenges. In the wake of these challenges, it's difficult. And then the management system itself is unprepared to do quality job, to provide quality services, to preside over the systems very well to make sure that people have better service. I always told people, I told my children, nobody drink water and sewer water, because that's not water to drink. It's unreliable. You cannot drink it. The chemical that is being used there is not the conventionally recommended chemical to use there. And so what is being used there doesn't even purify the water. So, so you have, barrage of problems in the sector. Instead of us providing service to the people, we, in most cases, for what you have in terms of water and the management of sewage and so forth, is that creating conditions to creating health, problem for the population, and not many people looking at it. Once people see water coming from the pipe, they think it's a water that is reliable, that they can drink, but that's not the situation at the moment.
Okay. I will get to you, Bobby, a little bit, but I wanted to get to you, Asaya, to the extent that you remember. I know you've been away there for a while, but why with water and sewer? What areas did they serve? What was the penetration of the water line?
Well, first of all, the line that was serving Monrovia, which is 36 inch, was small, and that's why when we were there, we made a case with the Millennium Challenge accounts, and they were able to understand that. So, first thing, we felt the source where we were getting the water from was not too safe. When dry season comes, the water overflow. When it overflows, salt water comes back into the into the river that we are using, and then the salt water that we pump it affect the population. So we argue that it was important that we go to the hydro, where the hydro is. So right now, the source of water we have there, we had to change it from 36 to 48. So it's the 48 inch that we are using now to bring more water. But we're pumping more water, and the more water we're pumping, the team that is there don't have the capacity, or they are not developing the capacity and the system to make sure that that amount of water that we are taking from up there from the White Plain, from the hydro, that they can pump that water adequately to Monrovia to serve Monrovia. Along the way,
it's coming from the St. Paul River.
Yeah, it's coming from the St. Paul River, but this time now, when the hydro, during the dry season, when the hydro is on, the water run dry. And when the water run dry, the sea overflow. When the sea overflow, it comes back into the river, and where we're getting it from. But from where we're getting it from now, we get it from now is from the hydro. From that end, the water that from there is pure, cold water, and that water, yeah, fresh water, yeah. So again, we've not been able to do that. And like when I talk about the quality of the water that you're doing, that place conventionally was constructed to use the gaseous chlorine. Now we are using the HTH, which is a hydroxide, stuff that we're using. The HTH is basically used for pool cleaning and all that kind of stuff and so forth. And in most cases, because people want to have the money for themselves, they do not go to buy the fresh HTH that at least can be used in the absence of the gaseous chlorine. They go to the Coast Guard base, the HTH that they have had in the rain from the time ECHOMA were there, they take it from there and carry it, which does not actually provide the kind of cleaning effect that is required for people to drink the water. So they put it right in there. The second thing is the HTH and the gaseous, they have two different kind of situation. That place is designed to use the gaseous. The gaseous is like, for example, you see the milk cake. You see there's a difference between milk. You got a powder, you got a liquid milk. Now the gaseous is the liquid that you use, and when you pump in the liquid, it goes into water. It goes into the water. When you pump it into the river, into the system, it goes in there and clean the water automatically. The HTH is a powder. It's like when you put powdered milk in, or sugar, you put sugar in a glass or in the water. You try to dilute sugar in the water. If you don't stir, you don't feel the effect. And that particular plant doesn't have stirrer. So as they pull the HTH, they just go down and sit down to the bottom. It doesn't clean the water. So that is a problem all by itself. At the moment, most of the pipes on the ground are rotten. They've been there as long as they've been placed there. Some of them have corrosions, and sometimes you have water intrusion into them. What we were trying to do at some point that we started, and we were bringing in people at some point, was to make sure that every city will have an elevated tower, so that when the water leaves the plant, it goes to that elevated tower. It is further processed, so that when it comes down, it is more prepared to go to the end user. And then when it comes down, it also goes down with pressure. So we did not complete that. But what you have there now is problematic. And because it's problematic, we can't even serve beyond Tingos Village. We can't serve beyond Tingos Village to serve community further down. We try to force it, but the pressure is being affected. And that's why you see the booster was built around the fish market. That booster was built specifically to help to boost the pressure from that fish market, improve the pressure to send the water up to Central Monrovia. But I think there were a lot of technical interpretation, disruption, and other things and so forth, and the system collapsed. The World Bank is doing another one now to use a direct line to take the water all the way up there to see if we can have water. But I think they still continue to have problems.
Yeah, talking about that, I think, Bobby, I ran into you one day near GSA running after sucking a rubber line in the ground. I don't know. Can you chime in with what? Can you chime in to this water situation? Yeah.
Yeah. Before that, let me make a disclaimer. I think Dan is very experienced as a former deputy managing director at the Water and Sewer. I don't speak on behalf of the Water and Sewer. I regulate them. So most of the information he gave me is that information that I would consider very serious. And I will have to, send it to my technical guys to look into those allegations that actually water from the White Plains should be safe for consumption for our population. And if it is not safe, the regulator, we got that mandate under the law to step in. So I really appreciate the information Dan is giving. But also being the head of the sector, I follow very closely the work of the service provider, that is in this case the utility, water and sewer. I see what them, spoke about earlier on about the forced intrusion into the water, the power plant or the White Plains. It was a serious challenge, and some funding was secured of $17 million by the government. And as Dan described, the pipe now is no longer after the hydro, but now we are getting the fresh water from behind the hydro, which has mitigated that challenge of the salt water coming into the water supply system, which is a serious thing. So I think that was done, and a delegation, a new pipe was laid from White Plains all the way behind the hydro. Dan also spoke about the booster. The booster, yes, it was intended to boost the water supply to all of the, different communities. And that was also a challenge. About $40 million by the World Bank through the water and sewer again, working directly with the utility. Those pipes were laid from the fish market all the way to central Monrovia. And I think
those are the pipes that saw you jumping.
I just went there to really show that it was happening. And so for me, my job is to ensure every Liberian, including all of our foreign partners, have access to safe pipe-borne water. So the more connection and safer the water, my job is really great. So by good water governance is the only means through which we can ensure this. When we came on board, there were no such things like the WASH Commission. The sector was very fragmented. Up to now, LWSC state have got some regulatory power. There was some last minute time amendment to the act, So all of the responsibility was with different ministries, agencies, and there was no clear leader of the sector. The commission said, it brought on the board the commission to provide our leadership. So we now have the responsibility to report the data on Liberia in terms of access to water. And mind you, there's a ladder that different classes or different steps on that ladder. We have what we call safety managed, which is the pipe-borne water. We have basic services or basic assets, which is the hand pump that is traditionally drilled all over our country. We are trying, as a commission, to move from our system to a standalone water tower. So we're doing a lot more in terms of regulation or regulating the sector, providing that leadership. One of the work we did with the LWSC recently, and Dan will speak about this when he talked about the municipal water project, where we saw that there was serious issue with capacity. We have to step in as a regulator. Yes, we are the same government, but our role clearly states that we regulate the sector. And as a regulator, we see our role as referee. We are not there on the field, in the practice ground or on the practice ground or in the dressing room. We are there to blow the whistle according to that. Thank you for some of the information you revealed. I will take them very seriously, and we'll be working on that from a regulatory standpoint. I don't think the water and sewer water pumped into the system should be, our people should be discouraged from drinking it. But if they are being discouraged from drinking it, then we got to step in. If it is not safe, it should not be pumped.
Okay, thank you, Bobby.
Great, let me just say this. You see, water and sewer, there's so much that the government pump in for chemical. The chemical that is approved conventionally by the guy who designed that place is the gaseous. The gaseous is cheaper and can have better effect on making the water prepared for drinking. If you spend, you can spend about 150, maybe 200,000. You can buy geishas that can take you for maybe a year or close to 2 years. The HTH is not a correct recommended water chemical to use, but it is expensive. And if managers buy it, they get bigger kickback on it. So they prefer to go for it, even though it's not a conventionally recommended. So, and then you can get the unfit one on the side and use it, and the money can be diverted.
You don't have any means
So,
to test the water, no quality
you know,
control?
well, no, normally what the Ministry of Health should be doing, or the water and sewer itself that we were trying to put in place, was there should be end user testing that should take place. You go to any random pump and take water and test it and see whether it meets that standard for drinking. Unfortunately, we didn't have that kind of support to be able to do it. So at the end of the day, we recommend it at some point that, look, we got people who can supply geishas, and geisha will cost up, for example, maybe $150,000 or $100,000 to have 1 whole year or almost 2 years supply of chemicals to keep supplying. But somebody want to use, come in.
Yeah, that's a very point. So right there, can I come in right there? That's a very important point you raised, that I think it's because you left government or left the water and sewer for a very long time now. We have got something called the intergovernmental agency, joint monitoring, and inspection.
I know that agency you're talking about was there when I was there. That intergovernmental agency that helped that other agency to go around to do testing periodically.
No,
I know that.
No, not when you were there. I've initiated that, and NCO and the Wash Commission have got an MOU to do periodic water quality testing. We've done that regularly at the water and sewer. So I maybe the information gave us when you were there what was specific, but now we shall work very robustly and brought all of the other partners on board, and we are testing the water quality.
Okay, all right, great. That so if you corrected that, then that's fine. But those were handicapped. I mean, I'm discussing the overall problem to water, and as a result of that, because the HTH is not recommended and it's expensive. And I mean, it created a condition for better, stuff and so forth. So it is procured. And because when we procure it, we don't have much money in the budget, we run short with chemical. So most cases, you got water not being available to the public and other things and so forth. And it affects the system. Besides that, the equipment, other things that we should work with. Today, even when we left, by the time we left, one of the crises that we experienced there was, we told the Chinese who did the work that, hey, you got to give us equipment and chemical value up to $600,000. And the battle we had was the $600,000 should be given cash and the equipment should be waived and other things and so forth. To the best of my understanding, people wanted the money. People wanted the money. And the equipment, even though the equipment they've been sold up to now, if you check the warehouses of the water and sewer, those equipments are not there. They are there. Those equipment pumps and other equipment were brought in to make sure that the system keep working, that you got spares, just in case you have a breakdown, the system can be fixed. All of those equipment nearly have left the warehouses, they're gone, and so forth. So we're talking about not just the legal instrument that's required to make water effective in the country, but the system is poorly managed and is managed by people who is about serve and not about the adequacy of the service that is provided to the people. And that's what we're talking about. And as a regulator, I know you're doing well. You need to step it up because there's so much that need to be done. One of the things the World Bank has said that it said, look, you know what, we're going to make some intervention was the whole issues about making sure that collection is done across community, across places. The World Bank, when we requested them, they finalized the coming of some of a company that came from Kenya, and they put in place a collection mechanism, system, structure, electronic. Today, as we speak, I'm not sure if that system works right now. It was intended to improve the efficiencies of collections so that the corporation becomes self-sufficient and the corporation is able to make sure that they provide water all of the time to the citizen. I know the regulator is starting. I do not think the regulator has been able to take full seize of that so that a developed water and sewer to become self-sufficient. Today, water and sewer is still receiving almost salaries and everything from the government of Liberia.
Okay, then let hold that there, Bobby. You're coming for a minute, but I wanted us to run this, and then I will get you guys' view on it. While at USAID, I was attached to a piece of work where the U.S. government funded the rehabilitation of 3 power plants around the country in Vonjima, Sanikuli, and Rubber Sports. I'll run a short video from the contractor, and then let's talk about it and what they really mean, or what they are working for.
Under the Liberia Municipal Water Project funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development, our team at Tetra Tech was tasked with designing a water treatment system that would give 3 Liberian cities access to clean water. Coming in, we were challenged with endemic corruption, the lack of infrastructure and utilities, and the lack of local engineers. So the design team paired simple water treatment designs with modern technologies and delivered a low-cost, low-maintenance option that can be sustained and operated.
I'm Prince A.A. Moba. I'm a site engineer for Tetra Tech based in Sanikole. The water comes from the intake point. It goes to the pre-treatment basin, which is the cascade aerator basin. So from the cascade aerator, it goes to the sedimentation basin. Heavier particles are settled down there. After the sedimentation basin, the water then goes to the slow sand filter. At that point, the water filtered down is seeped through the sand and it removes pathogens from the water. At the bottom of the slow sand filter, there are perforated pipes. It enters the clear water tank. From the clear well, it's being pumped to the elevated water tower for storage. From the clear well, it's also being pumped to the distribution system where it goes to the public.
We designed a context-appropriate water treatment system that would provide a low-cost operation and easy-to-maintain system. These systems are designed to provide treated water to over 30,000 people. The water systems run on an 80-20 hybrid system, meaning that 80% of the energy is provided through solar power, and there's a diesel generator as backup.
One of the most exciting aspects of LMWP is that when USAID designed the project, they recognized that the new utilities would need technical and management support during and after startup and initial operations. So we are now helping the local operators and the National Water Company to troubleshoot problems, refine management systems, and generally helping to ensure everything is working as intended and that the utilities are working towards self-reliance.
Okay, guys. There are 3 of these facilities. I think they rehabilitated the plant in Rubber Sports. I visited there. In Vonjima, I visited there, and in Sanikole, I didn't go to Sanikole. This is the Sanikole facility, and they're putting up real clean drinking water. I have my own frustration, though, especially in Rubber Sports. The young engineers, Liberians there who have been trained, were complaining that one of the water comes naturally from up the hill in Rubber Sports, so it's not pumped, and so they can process as much water as possible. But they were not getting the clients to use the water. So apart from the kiosks around the town where people go and pay, I think $5 for 6-gallon container. Even the hospital was not plugged into the water. There's a major maritime facility that the World Bank somebody built in Cape Mount there for small artisanal fishermen. They were not connected to the water. So you guys are familiar with these $30 million worth of infrastructure down there and producing water. What do you do about it? How is it functioning? What can we do differently?
Well, I think Bobby is coming. Oh, Bobby, you want me to come in?
Yeah, Bobby, let Bobby come in because Bobby has some loose end to close in the last section.
No, I will do that later. But look, great project. We want to say thank you to our development partner, the U.S. government through the USAID. For the past couple of years before this administration, they invested heavily in water infrastructure. As a result of that, credit to the past leadership of the Liberia Water and Sewer Corporation, there was an MOU signed under the Madam Shelley's government for the development or the building of the 3 municipal water projects in Senekule, Ronjama, and that of Rava State. The system in Senekule is meant to connect about 2,000 households. Ronjama 2,000 households, and that of Rava State 1,000 households. At the end of the delegation or the turning over ceremony of that facility, it was just when this new governor was taking office. So that project was basically turned over to the water and sewer, to the governor of Liberia through the water and sewer. All of that, there was no regulator at the time in the country, so we had no role to play in it until very recently when we realized that the subsidy payment by the USAID for the operation and maintenance of those plants in February. And with knowing that the challenges faced by the utility provider, water and sewer, we have to step in and say, hang on, we don't think this is the best way to go by turning these facilities over to the water and sewer. We don't think they have the capacity. We think it should be turned over to private provider. So we still stand by that. But because of that, very limited time that we had to do all of the advertisement and everything, we gave the water and sewer up to 6 months to operate it as an interim, provision. So there's an interim between now and June, July. We should, do the whole bidding process over for a private provider to come in and operate those plants. But you also mentioned why the residents are picking up the water. It got to do with the mindset, behavior change. Our people, a lot of them are very used to, fetching water from the hand pumps or the well. Most of them are not opting for, like a connection. And this is a bit discouraging. We have to go there as leaders to show our people that the water is safe for consumption, which I did when I went to Senekule. I fetched the water and I drank it. When I went to Bonjama, I fetched the water in a cup and I drank it to display that leadership as well as the political will that the water is actually safe for consumption. But there will be a very big marketing strategy in terms of getting more people to subscribe and connect. This is what we want to see. Is it do the mathematics as we have got the reporting obligation to the UN water, about 5,000 connections, and you multiply that by the household of 5, we're talking about almost 25,000 of our people having access to pipe-borne water. This is where we are heading. This is where we intend, for the country to be moving as the regulator. More connection to the water bill, and once the system is properly managed, we think that this is a really good thing for our people. So for us as the regulator, it's about ensuring that the system is actually working. Our people have access to the water is safe, it's available, it's affordable, because water is human right. So we want to ensure that our people tap into it. All of the technical part, I will leave that to Dan. And I hope next time we have the show, you'll bring the utility to be able to speak for themselves, because I will not, debunk anything Dan is saying. As the regulator, I think Dan is doing me a great favor here as whistleblower at the back, that I can take in some of these things and put it before my guys to work on it as quickly as possible.
You can ask the hard questions.
Okay. Do you want me to come in?
Yeah, you can come in.
All right. So, as Bobby said, our development partners have been doing extremely well. Those 3 counties, water system has been rehabilitated by the USAID. And the first design of the approach, one, was first to make sure that they have some kind of point where community people will go to be able to have access to safe drinking water. The second thing was, since that project was just like a pilot project, that the system in those counties would be managed by a private provider. And so there was a private provider that was recruited. Now, when you say why those places are not receiving, when they did the first phase of the project, they only provided the water to the point of usage, which is the chaos. They created chaos around, and when the chaos started functioning well, and other things and so forth, they wanted to make sure that they expanded, and that's where they came in with what Bobby said, relative to the work that was done to make sure that line in people's homes are provided to 2,000 houses in Sannicole, 2,000 houses in Wajima, and 1,000 in Lofa. But the problem, there was a partnership between the government of Liberia and the USAID. The government of Liberia was able to pay certain subsidy to the private manager of the system in those three counties, and government was not making its contribution to the private provider. And there were several meetings that were called by the provider. The provider called several meetings to ask why and when will government pay their own contribution to the provider. And I think for some reason government was able to provide that. They from what he said, I do not think the private provider is still there. If it's still there, fine. I don't know, but I know the contract was about to end. And the water and sewer was either supposed to take over to manage the system, and either think about how to renew the contract depending on how the contract will be structured. Whether it will be structured the same way or not. So, but I can tell you the system in the three counties is a very perfect system. The filtration system is good, and the water there is very, very, very good. So I hope the government of Liberia can do that, because there were system management, deficits with supervision of the people in the county well to make sure that they are managing those systems. Water and sewer was not exercising those. Water and sewer before the war had people who were responsible for outstations, managers. In those outstations today, as we speak, many of the people who are there, they are not efficient because they don't have the logistics. Some of them are there. Most of the people who are there, they are just people who are on, how they call it, voluntary, contractor arrangement. So they are not paid, and they're there. They're not, to doing so. As a result, leakages are taking place. How they call it, the water is not making the kind of revenue that the water should be generating, because people are on voluntary arrangement. Sometimes some of them make connections, and the connections become their private business, and they follow up with people. So all these kind of problems are still affecting the efficiencies of the outside system that are there, because we've not been able, water and sewer have not been able to put in place the management system outside to be very efficient to manage the processes outside. And the government of Liberia has not been able to also pay their contribution to the private provider that was managing those processes in the counties. So basically, I think that's the problem now in those counties. They were doing the direct connection to houses before I left. I don't know if they've completed that, but that was starting in Sannicole, and there was a company that was contracted to do that before I left. So they were doing that in Sannicole, they were doing that in Wajima, they were doing that in Tottenham. No, in Ravensport. Yeah.
Bobby, you want to tune in?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of feedback. I don't know whether it's from my end or I'm okay, right? Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you. A little bit rusty, but I can hear you. Dan, can you hear Bobby?
Yes, I'm hearing.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'll drop out at some point. Like I said, I was going to leave the technical details. Try to go over that. But as the regulator, we are fully abreast of what is obtaining, and we're taking our stand. We are not outside of the government. So when you say the government is not, then I mean the role of the regulator has been discounted. The regulator saw the challenges, with the management of the water system by the LWSC, and we basically have to step in. And that brought the entire sector together. There were several meetings held, even with the private provider. We were informed again that, water and sewer that paid the private provider. We are aware of that. At that meeting, the regulator mandated or instructed water and sewer to take care of the payment of the private provider. A letter was written to the Ministry of Finance by water and sewer to take care of the private provider. This is where it is at. But as the regulator, again, we will ensure that the private provider, once they have done their work, they get paid. On the line of connections, I think that there was a very cool piece of work done by the private provider, given the length of time and the number of connections. Don't get me wrong here. They needed to connect, like I said, in only 2,000, only 17 households being connected out of 2,000. Vanjama less than 20. Why they needed to connect about 2,000. So that was a bit of a challenge. But I'm very pleased to say the training that those guys have been given, the private provider, from intent to be specific, it's just really amazing to see Liberians managing those facilities for over the past 4 years. And I think they should be given the opportunity to continue. But having said that, the process is going to be open to a bidding process, very robust, very transparent, and the best, bid will win it. We want to give it to a private provider. We have said it as the regulator. We don't want it to be managed by water and sewer. We think they should concentrate on providing water to our people here in Monrovia, like we started the conversation with. We want to see the increased connectivity to the water grid in Monrovia. We don't want to stretch them thin. We are aware of the challenges they have in Kakata, the challenges they have in Zwedru, the challenges they have in of Bikena. We are not going to add up to that problem. So we told them, you are only going to manage it for an interim period of 6 months and then turn it over to a private provider. We all agree on it, and that communication has been sent to the USAID as the way forward.
I was looking at water and sewer location map yesterday or so when I was doing some research, and it appears to me that except for probably the newer counties, water and sewer had pipe-borne water facility in just about every county, including Virginia, Maryland, and in fact, I was in Greenville, one day, and I went to the water tower. There's this water tower that you will see anywhere out there. I mean, we've been out of the war for years now. I mean, it's said that the guys before 1980 were smarter than us.
Yeah, it's it. Let me tell you something. I think for me, most of the problem we're faced with is I think there are management deficits to a great extent. Look, you see, have you gone to, as a regulator, have you been told about New Georgia and Soul Clinic? The African Development Bank invested in New Georgia and Soul Clinic.
Water plants?
They build mini water plants, elevated towers. Mm-hmm. Now, in those places, when they built them, when I got there, I got behind it. I said, no, we need household connection in those places. The African Development Bank came and brought new money and said, okay, here is it. Now, the way it was designed was there would be revolving kind of mechanism. The revolving mechanism would be people who get it first, they will pay fees. As they pay the fees, the money will be used to connect all other people in the community so that everybody is able to have money. Today, as we speak, that particular system is not being utilized. It is still there in New Georgia, and the other one is in Soul Clinic. And when we decided that, the people will have to move in to do the connection, managers in the sector said no. The manager with us who working with us said no, they would not do it until their signature fees before they can authorize that to take place.
Who pays
as a result?
Who pays the signature fee?
They want signature fee. They think that the contractor should have some money and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's just nonsense. And because of that, that manager did not sign the document. Today, household connection in New Georgia was not done. Household connection in Soul Clinic was not done. And so you have these kind of problems in the system. So it's not just about those people. New Georgia, which is nearby, New Georgia that could improve and expand the revenue collection of water and sewer to be able to function well. Today, that elevator tower is there, and the pipes are under the ground, and people are not being served for water and sewer to generate revenue. So, like I said, there are critical manager issues, and this is not about anybody. It's about our country and the way I feel that things could work. I do not think they are working like that. I mean, I could talk about any other agency, not about water and sewer, but that is the water and sewer discussion that we are having now, and that's what I'm telling you. I'm telling you things that are happening there and the problems that keep depriving our people of safe drinking water in communities that I know that should have had water by now.
So that's a great information again, Dan. I beg you, Dan. Look, is there any way you can visit the Water Commission anytime soon? Because this one is very serious. I've launched an investigation into why those facilities that are serving the communities, New Georgia and out of Soul Clinic. I'm aware that the African Development Bank paid over $26 million for those facilities to be, to serve over 100,000 people. That's a huge boost to our country. If those facilities are up and running. But since they were built, I'm aware that they are lying in rooms, and we launched an investigation with the help of CSO. We brought in the WASH Legislative Caucus. We're going to continue to see it to a logical conclusion. But I think when I told you that we are aware of some of the challenges for which we have to intervene in the municipal water project in Senegal, Von Jamal, and that of Rabasport, you now know where I'm coming from as the regulator. We are not going to be in the issues on, an institution where we clearly see there are challenges. However, down at, level some serious allegations that I want to, investigate further. The White Commission will not sit. We are not afraid to blow the whistle. We are there to serve the population. And it is only through good WASH governance that we can ensure that all of our people have access to water. And this brings me to the point that I wanted to make tonight. I just wanted to give you an overview. You see, WASH is so compact. When we talk about WASH, there are so many dimensions, so many layers, and sometimes you just get bogged into one and it takes up 2-3 hours easily. We just been talking about water, but I know we wanted to talk about sanitation. You get into sanitation, what kind of sanitation are you referring to? Are you referring to, a solid waste, medical waste, open defecation? If you get into hygiene, hand hygiene, menstrual. So it is so, complex that sometimes when we are into it, we really want us to unpack it based on where we are really heading rather than the conversation to be all over the place. But as a step, let us look at Liberia in terms of water assets. Water assets. And I will start with a lot of the basic services to our people. By 2018, Liberia sat around 72% in terms of basic assets. That is a hand pump is sitting here, and it's about 30 minutes to and full to fetch it, the longest distance. So that's a basic service. The water is safe for consumption, but it is not on the premises. Liberia was sitting by 2018 about 72%. Today, 2022, 23, we can safely say Liberia is sitting around about 76%. And now we have initiated a JSR, that's the Joint Sector Review. At the end of the Joint Sector Review, that figure will move up a little bit because over the last 4 years, a lot of our partners have listened to the Commission, New Vision, that we should graduate from this hand pump and move on to water system. So if you see around the country, you start to see water system going up. We just, built some with the CRS in Kakata. We are building some in East Island, in Todi, all over the places. So we're graduating slowly from the hand pump to the water system. That water system is where you pump the water to an elevated tower and then gravity distributed to the zero home. Where we have not really been able to get the figures from is the operation of the LWSC. This is the safely managed, asset, safely managed. It's pipe-borne water. It's on the premises, available, when you need it. And this is the figure that the UN SDG 6.1 want every nation in the world to be able to achieve by 2030. This is where we are heading. Before the war, we were around about 18% asset to the country. The war broke down the infrastructure. We came back. We have not done a real good, scientific measurement of the access to pipe-borne water. The last time it was done, the figures reflected around 4%. We dropped from 18% to 4%. I think with the, influx of new connections that is happening, including that of the municipal water project in those 3 cities, we will be heading up, but we are not back at pre-war status yet. And this is where I think we continue to enlighten government. We've got to do more. The progress is being made, but it's slow, very, very slow. In terms of sanitation, and for the focus of...
You just hold on for 1 second. I wanted, out of courtesy, we normally would end this show in 2 hours. We've split out 2 hours. I don't have a problem. I wanted to get you guys permission that you don't mind staying with me a little bit so we can deal with some of these issues. Maybe another 30 minutes. Would that be fine?
Dan, yeah.
What do you say, Dan?
Yes, I think we can accord you the 30 minutes.
Okay, Bobby, then go ahead. Because I wanted to get to Q on that too. Go ahead. Let's start. Sorry for cutting you off, but I didn't want to run you guys out of time and don't let you know that I need your permission.
So that was the wash ladder for water, basic asset and safely managed asset. Now we get to sanitation. I understand, sometimes it's very easy to bring a video from 2018 when the government just took power, or 2019. But significant progress has been made, Cyrus. Let's be honest.
I like to see those kind of nice video too, Bobby.
Yeah, we'll get the current video. I will share with some of those videos. I know you asked me, but then it's been a crazy week for me. But look, in terms of sanitation, open defecation across the country was around about 42% by 2018. And sometimes, our partners on the other side don't like to hear this, but today we sit around about 38%. That's 4% decrease. So we are not increasing in terms of open defecation, but we are decreasing. Progress again is slow. We think funding is lacking, and this is not unique to Liberia. Globally, WASH is critically underfunded. To tackle the issue of any open defecation, according to our sector investment plan, Liberia needs no less than, if I WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene, Liberia needs no less than 165 million per annum investment in the sector in order for us to achieve SDG 6 by 2030. And guess what? Since 2015, that projection was made. Liberia has only been bringing in around about $44 million. You have a deficit of almost $110 million since 2015. That has been the trend. And out of that money, almost 98% of that $44 million is brought in by the partners, by the development partners. The Liberian government is contributing, it's around 1.52% of that money. And that contribution of the Liberian government is going towards salary, nothing in terms of program. So we are heavily donor dependent in the white sector, and we are making effort. Sometimes it sounds like you are being negative, but this is the reality. You have to project it out there so that we all can see it very clearly. Without the WASH Commission, we still be running all over the place without direction. But the government brought on board the WASH Commission and able to take care of the salary of the WASH Commission. Now, what the WASH Commission is doing, this year is going to be our very first regulatory year. We spoke about groundwater. We have developed with the assistance of USAID. We brought in the Stockholm International Water Institute. We have developed what we call the regulatory framework. Anybody exploiting our groundwater should be paying for it. And this is where the WASH sector will fund itself. Government now will start to raise much needed revenue to be able to fund WASH program across this country, and with very minimum reliance on donor partners. So we can see an emergence of real bright scenario for the WASH sector, and we are very, very optimistic that this is going to happen. So in terms of open defecation, we have brought it down from 42% to 38%. Hygiene is still a challenge, and you saw what happened during the COVID-19. The fight against COVID-19 was driven by the message of, washing hands, and that's what we refer to as hand hygiene, water, and soap. And our people are very good that when we are faced with a pandemic, we will follow the health guidelines. But as soon as we see things start to subside, we drop those good behavior and we leave it. And we got to continuously put in, behavior change messages. But we are very good in terms of open defecation. Last year, we were able to attract $30 million again from the United States government through USAID to end open defecation in 5 countries: Montserrat, Bong, Nimba, Lufa, and Bassa.
How do you start it? You build toilets or what?
Encourage homes to build toilets. There will be, a community grants that will be given for people to pick up and buy toilets and build it in their home. Homes that's being built now going to be, and building toilets along. We're going to change our old way of building a house without a toilet or having a toilet, at a distance. We're going to be, working with communities to build community toilets. The CLTS program is the one where you got a community-led total sanitation, where the community take initiative to build toilets. But we see that has been very slow. Over a decade, that program was initiated, and we never made any significant progress. So with the new model from the USAID, that funding is going to be available for people to build toilets in Montserrat, Ong, Nimba, Lufa, and Bassa. Once we are able to end open defecation in these 5 counties, I can tell you our open defecation rate is going to plummet downward, and we're going to be on the right trajectory. So we are great. We attracted another 17 million through the same USAID to provide water in rural Montserrat and Magdibi. So by the next year or in the next 2-3 years, we should not be having water problems with water should not be water issues should not be any problem in Montserrat and Magdibi, especially rural Montserrat and Magdibi. So look, efforts are being made, and I think the sector is heading in the right direction. Regulatory-wise, like I said, it takes time for people to catch up with new regulations. The commission must be empowered to enforce. Our inspectors got to be vigilant, robust, and we got to play the role like the pot that cook the beef. Don't know the cow. We got to be fair and treat everybody equally. We have shut down some businesses that are not, up to standard sanitarily. We have shut down some water producing companies in this place, and restaurants and hotels. We will continue to work, diligently to serve our people as the regulator. But we ask all of our partners that WASH should not be politicized. WASH, the issue to do with water, sanitation, and hygiene should not be politicized at all, because it's a serious national development challenge. If we get it right, we will be cutting down the issue to do with the overburdeness of our healthcare sector. We will be improving our economy. We will be keeping our girls, especially girls in school. We will be raising, our workforce will be much more productive because our people have access to clean and safe drinking water, decent sanitation, facilitation infrastructure.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you. I mean, hey, I'm really glad that we could have this interaction, at least bring some of these things to the fore. And you sitting in a regulatory role, I think it's good too that you get through all these arrows so you can figure out how you can work with the people in the sector to get us something. But I wanted to ask a funny question here. Like Monrovia, the reality is Monrovia is a city that is about 201 years old. I mean, if you go into downtown area, especially, there's a major challenge with the sewage system. I'll give you one joke. I'm down Randall Street, a place called Thunderbird. And the guys, I go there, the guys stand on the side there and they change car oil. So they're changing my oil. I sit in the car, it starts to rain. They finish with the job. So I decided to jump down to go and take care of them. And simultaneously, all the guys on the sidewalk were yelling, no, don't get out. So I said, but what the heck going on? They say, all the water that coming down here, that poo-poo water, don't step inside. So the reality is you go on McLean Street, Randall Street, close to the Sodium Way area. Every time you have a flood, or maybe every time somebody flushes a toilet, a backup into the street. Considering the age of the city and some of these piping systems that have been unattended for years, what is your thinking, especially Dan? How do you think we address this? I mean, you think it's supposed to bust this place, take the pipe off, or to? I mean, how do we? And then also the fact that I was reading a book by Victoria Tolba, and somewhere in the book she was saying that right when they moved in the city was getting congested because before there were about 50,000 people. Now they were going to around 250,000. Imagine her saying that in 1978, 79. Most of the infrastructure has not changed. Now we're talking about well over 1 million people living in the same space. How do we address that sewage system? It's a real challenge that we got to think of from a real systemic standpoint.
So Cyrus, there is serious pressures on our community relative to the congestions of community, and besides that, Monrovia sits on water. The water table in Monrovia is very high. Originally, most of the sewage system and lines that were done are basically galvanized pipe, and they get corroded. There need to be a new thinking about the kind of pipe, maybe, coke kind of, PVC kind of pipe system.
Run whole new lines?
Start a process that can look into that. You may not run all, but you need to start a process that will start to replace that.
Do you know if Water and Sewer State have the plan for the city, the sewage plan?
In the first place, I think why should be thinking about how to think through a new sanitation architecture for the city. Right now, look, along Clara Town, along Doe community, along, most of the community that you find around. When the war started, there were private toilets that were built by these NGOs. And so most of these toilets, people who did them probably did them because they just wanted to make their money and were not guided by state policy relative to what kind of structure should be built. Many of them have collapsed, especially in Clara Town. Most of them have collapsed. These toilets have added to the contamination of the groundwater system across this community. Yet people dig wells in those communities. Sometimes they still drink those wells. In central Monrovia, where you have the fishing, most of those pipes have been blocked by people who build in illegal places, or even people who build in places that they consider their land, and those pipes have been blocked. The entire sewage and drainage system in central Monrovia is problematic. The second thing is, if you look at the whole country, our sewage line from Mama Point, it ends in Douala. From Douala, it goes to Oro, from Oro right there to Nigeria House. The rest of the Mosorado that you feel there's no sewage system in those places. So, first of all, the groundwater system in those places is very troubling. Besides, because people dig, they pit and use it for septic tank, and the water the waste go down and affect that whole community. I mean, the certain parameters of where those kind of things are dug are affected, but people don't understand that. People drink from those places. But so when we did assessment, when we were there, when I was there, after I did the assessment for a very long time, I did a proposal to a group in the Netherlands. They accepted the proposal. They came in contact. When they were about to come, I thought within that period I had reached a point where I couldn't afford to stay to embrace or to absorb things that were happening. And I decided, look, in 2 weeks, I will leave, and I will leave a turnover note so that you know where I stop, who I apply to, where you should expect money from, and so forth. So before that 2 weeks, in 3 days, the partner came because I knew they were coming. They were coming. We signed the in fact, the day was supposed to sign the MMOR. And they did an assessment of the
You
sewer
sign
system.
your own MOU like Elenito?
No. The
Okay.
management team, they came, they sat down with the management team. We went around, they reviewed the system and other things and so forth. But then they were committing 36 million euro. And we needed up to 70-something million dollars. So they wanted counterpart funding. So we got in contact with the World Bank. We said, look, we need additional money. So then the evening, before the final time for me to leave came, that evening, then I arranged a meeting. We were sitting at Mama Point Hotel and so forth. So, but people, there were solutions that were being found to deal with this kind of issue. During the final discussion and drafting the I call it memoir, other things and so forth, and that was when the executive management decision that since I say I will leave so time, better I leave now.
So they
And
came
then
the car and thing that I remember that.
yeah. After they ransacked the place and so forth, and the guy left after 1 week. They wrote and said we can't make it to fund this project.
Oh, wow.
So we lost that money. All the other commitment that were coming, we lost it. But I wanted to say that the sewer system in a country that got problem is problematic. The African Development Bank built in New Georgia, they built toilets. In Chokri, they built toilets. In several other counties, they built toilets, Grand Judea, Grand Bassa. These facilities, to date, as we speak, have not been fully utilized. And those are potential revenue generation sources for the government, besides making sure that the groundwater system or those systems are preserved. Those are potential revenue generation sources. But in any case, as a watch, I think the watch should be thinking now going further. Our city can continue to build public toilet in every part of the city because
Bobby is moving away from that. That's the idea.
Yeah, so that's what I like about what he said, because it contaminates the entire groundwater system. And to a great extent, it's not good. All of the places, you go Peaceville, you go Garnersville, you go all the places. The water, the ground, how they call it, the groundwater system in Garnersville is not anything that anybody should play with, because the water table in Garnersville is very high. You find the same thing in many other parts of our country. Most other places, the water table is very high. So you can't use that. At some point, there were suggestions that we're bringing that we will make sure that we pool, for example, 5 houses and create a pool tank, septic tank. That all the 5 houses, it come to that one place, somebody come there, we bring our truck, water and sewer, and just take it until we can have the resources to make sure that sewage is done for all of the places and so forth. And by that, the pressure on our groundwater system will be diminished. That everywhere where you have septic tank, it will not affect the groundwater system and all in our places and so forth. But so going further, a lot need to be thought through, and I like some of the things that you're talking about relative to how we manage our sanitation and water system. Today, because how they call it, the Fireman plan is not good. People dump their waste anywhere, anytime. And then one thing that I want you to also think about, before Salib left, there was a structure and the policy was developed for that. They call it the water integration, the integrated water system. The integrated water system was intended to enable the watch to keep supervision and to enable the country to manage the water bodies across the country. How they call it, the ocean, the disposal of waste along our beaches and coastal line, other things and so forth. So the integrated water system was intended to make sure that we manage our water system, water that we got along the border. How do people utilize our border? How do they intrude on our border? Water, our maritime border. How do we take, advantage of that to make sure that we make productive use of our water? If people were using our border maybe for affairs will be crossing and also forward. The revenue that is generated, how do we share into that? So there's so much relative to that I think the watch we want to look at, because the integrated water system is another big revenue generation and is taking serious track along international, how they call the water management system across the globe. So I think it's something that you might want to also look at in a very significant way. But at some point, what we introduced, there was a a department that we introduced at Water and Sewer, and that department was responsible to manage latrines and wells that were dug by these NGOs and other things and so forth. What they were doing, when we were doing it, we were developing the structure. We were bringing one Liberian company that was producing tissue to be responsible to supply, because we're making it a compelling issue. And we're introducing a public-private partnership with private managers to manage the water chaos or to manage the latrine, the cleaning, other things and so forth. So there was an arrangement for profit sharing, say 40, 60 for the profit sharing, whatever money that come in, so that those services will be managed, and the water company also will make a lot of money that they will come. Then people stay in those places, they mismanage them, and those services are not provided, and the community don't have water or they don't have those services, and other things and so forth. So maybe in your regulatory work, those are other initiatives that you might want to discuss to see how your intervention will help to improve access to water and access to income also for people who don't have job, or for some kind of employment for the ordinary people. So the people make money, they have themselves employed, and the company Water and Sewer also make money to make sure that to be able to run its operations and so forth. The other thing is the counties that Gray were talking about. I visited Maryland, I visited Sino, I went to Bong, I went to a couple of the counties to do some assessment to see what is happening. There is an attitude, either maybe in government or somewhere. Most of the places that were taken by the company, for example, the plant in Maryland, it's still in question. It's in contestation. People, community say it's for them. They say it's for them. There are a lot of intrusion that's going on. Even the Fiamma plant, I mean, people encroach on it, they build on it because they never did proper documentation for those property.
But
so
the government, again, those are public assets. The government can exercise eminent domain.
Well, I mean, I would see how they want to do that, because sometimes you have conflicting interest in some of these processes. We're trying to do it for Water and Sewer at Fiamma, we could not, because I mean, you want to get people evicted, you got to pay them back. You must have proof that the place is for you.
So the FEMA facility to some extent is encroached upon?
Yes, Barrow Project ground all the way up there.
Wow. Okay, Bobby, one thing I wanted to say so I don't forget from what Dan was saying, it seemed to me there is a need for you guys to consider a municipal sewage plan.
Yeah.
Plan that will be considering the oldness of this stuff, to find some money and get a crack team together to replan the entire underground of the city, considering new technology and all that. Because
the Japanese master plan got a segment for that. So all the state need to do is to take that aspect, go and look for the Chinese master plan, the Japanese master plan, and take that aspect of the overall system.
You mean Japanese master plan, Chinese master plan?
The Japanese did some work for road network. I mean, sanitation, water. I mean, a lot that they did is in that
for the whole city.
Yes, for the whole.
That would be a good thing to pull out.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Bobby.
For the insight you have provided, very knowledgeable on the subject matter. Years of experience is not wasted. You can clearly see you stay passionate about the issue to do water sanitation hygiene. Look, we've done significant work with the African Ministers Council on Water, as AMCAL, working with the WASH Commission. Liberia hosted one of the working sections here. And it was all about developing a blueprint or the master print for sanitation across Africa. We have to be aligned with our colleagues from the rest across the continent. And as such, there's a working group now that is currently working down this way. I've been talking about that, the sanitation master plan. We need a sanitation master plan. In fact, one of the things that we have, the challenges that we are facing, most of our policies, guidelines are obsolete. They are outdated. They need updating, and it's part of what the USAID is funding through Ringrock. So we'll have an expert working with the different sector, but a committee between the WASH Commission, comprising the WASH Commission, the Monrovia City Corporation, the Queensville City Corporation, LWSC, the EPA, the Public Works, the technical guys are working, and then we're bringing an AMCAL expert on the sanitation, guidelines for us to, finally launch that. So there's really a good work being done in that direction. We got the Swedish ambassador, and he's always on our back. Where are we with this? Where are we with this? So very soon you will hear progress on that. I appreciate when you spoke about the integrated water resource management system. This is part of the SDGs, and Liberia definitely, we will need to, rekindle that. It's been on the rock for some time. It's been on the side and gathering dust. I think it's something to bring back and look at. We got a reporting obligation on this RWRMS, the Integrated Water Resource Management System. Liberia must definitely get back on par. And you made a very great point. How are we monitoring our water? We live downstream. Most of our water originates from Guinea. We got to have a very strong, working relationship with Guinea and see what they are doing on the water. If Guinea is going into mechanized farming, industrializing the agriculture sector, they're going to be using chemicals. All of the chemicals they're going to be using in Guinea will end up in our waterway here in Liberia. How is that hazardous to our population? So we got to, get onto this as fast as possible. This is something that I've been on the shelf. I've met it there. The work just been, humongous so much. So we got to get back. We got to revive this and get onto it as quickly as possible because it got a national security threat. It got a serious national. If Guinea decide to put a ban on, for example, one of our major rivers, the flow here will be lesser. It will reduce the flow into Liberia. And that means if we got the same dam downstream here, we will not generate the same kind of electricity. That's why our country will start to talk to each other. The same thing is happening now between Ethiopia, I think, Egypt, and then somewhere around Sudan, South Sudan. There's a serious crisis going on there. Liberia got to be far ahead. We got to start thinking far ahead. Last year, August, Liberia was very fortunate to have been invited to advise the Green Climate Fund for climate watch financing. All of the pieces of advice that were provided to the board of the Green Climate Fund were taken into the consideration. Then your expertise leader here, and all of our bread brains. For me, at the WASH Commission, it's not about party lines. It's not about, no. Once you can deliver, we come and put the project together, we will submit it. And this is where, I really appreciate, the level of freedom His Excellency gave me to exercise my authority in the sector, never interrupting my, operation. So I work with everybody from across the aisle without fear or favor, and it's been supported. So I'm asking all of our bread brains that now that the Green Climate Fund has put up a new guideline that yes, climate financing can go for WASH, it is about time we develop a national climate financing for WASH program inserted into the national, adaptation plan, EPA through the EPA, because the EPA is the focal point for, the climate change. And then we will have at least something coming to Liberia for the Green Climate Fund for WASH specifically. Yes, I spoke about our policies being obsolete. We need to, enhance and upgrade all of our policies. Luckily, we have got the funding to do that through the USAID, and that is happening. So sometimes you think the work is bread and butter. It's not bread and butter because as a regulator, I don't only regulate businesses and private sector. I regulate even government offices. And you go to some of the government offices, you find it very filthy. The bathroom, you cannot even use it. And you are talking about WASH, and people don't even want it. It's about that. And you got to be very strong. You got to be very strong. I remember when we were talking about the bicentennial, I told the bicentennial organizing committee, if you don't clean the Providence Island, do not take people there. It's filthy. It's dirty. You got to put fishermen on that river and scoop the trash from over that river. And it was almost like, nobody could hear it. So sometimes you are inside, but you have to have these challenges. And I know the job is not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. But I really appreciate, like I said, the support from His Excellency. Once we get to him, so the man is doing his job, you got to give him, I got to exercise his authority. So Liberia is now moving and slowly grabbing the concept that we got. The first thing is we must all recognize that there is an authority now in the sector. There is an authority that regulates the sector, and then we can rally around those policies that we develop. We don't provide the services. We are not a service provider. We are not Water and Sewer or Monrovia City Corporation, but we also understand the challenges these guys are faced with. Some of the challenges, I mean, it's not like, technical or what have you. Some are very basic logistic challenges. You got a Monrovia City Corporation that must be taking about 1,000 tons of, rubbish every day from the street, and they can only manage about, maybe 500. So you need to have the facilities, the vehicles, the front end load of the truck. You need to have the collection point, and then you need to have the landfill. The landfill in sanitation team management should be the last resort. We should be thinking about recycling. We should be thinking about, reuse and all of these things. But we don't even factor it in, and it's going to take time, but at least the effort has been made. So, look, it's been a really, really great discussion. I appreciate the show, and I'm available anytime. Cyrus, you always bring up a very great show on our country. Very enlightening. I saw some of the comments. I know people are following. I just want to say thank you very much for being respectful to your panelists. And we don't want to make this show like some of the other shows. We want to keep the dignity and the integrity of our nation. We want to reflect Liberia as a civilized nation and not Liberia as a combative. Thank you. Thank you. It's very good.
Bobby, thank you very much, and Dan, you both for showing up. I tell you, Bobby, if I'm getting indication if some Liberian professionals wanted to reach you for whatever reason, what's the best way to get to you and watch?
Oh, you got my email address. Please share.
You want me to share it?
Yeah, please do that. We've now got the needs. We need people who can write project on the go.
If you like to reach Bobby, I watch. This is his email, right? Email. So, Bobby, Dan, you both, I really appreciate that you could come. I think this is the idea that this show is about, that we're bringing subject matter experts or resource persons. So we actually discuss challenges that we have in Liberia, and then advance solutions, and also create a network. Because whatever is happening over there is all of us business, and the more we can collaborate, the better the chances that we can address some of the issues. But first, we need to understand them, and everybody needs to talk about it. This is not a political platform. It has no lineage one way or the other. It's just about Liberian issues. And yes, I appreciate the fact that you have observed the cordiality. We can have the hard discussions, but we're professionals and respectful to each other. So I really appreciate the both of you. Especially Dan also, I really appreciate all that you have put on the table. I think Bobby is in a good position to synthesize it and see what he can pick up to be able to hold the other guys to the table and say, look, how can we address this and that? How can we do that? So I'm glad we've had this show. So I'll give you both a few minutes to give a parting comment, just to say that I appreciate that you could show up.
Dan, you'll go ahead.
Yes, I'll go ahead, Ambassador. Well, look, I think water is life, and watch is a matter of civility. People are able to make sure the environment is good. They showcase the kind of people they are. And so we all have the responsibility, no matter whether you're in government or you're outside of government, we all have that responsibility to make sure that our country is able to provide the kind of environment that is embracive and an environment that makes us to be seen as civilized people. Those of us who have the responsibility to serve our people should do as much as we can. And when we have the responsibility to do so, we should do it to the best of our ability. I do believe the Watch has a huge mandate. The wife should open its eyes continuously, open its ear continuously to look at some of the critical issues. Water issue has not been widely considered as it is now. So I think Bobby has a huge task. It has a task of developing new plan. We discussed here the need for a master plan for sanitation services in our country, and that's something that Bobby need to look at. There are many of the NGOs, they themselves, sometimes we used to have some disagreement. They want to do how they see it, how they think about it. You must have your own plan about how you want your country to be like. People can't build public toilets all over our cities continuously. We need to have a standard and policy that ensure that every house that is built can have a toilet to serve the occupants of that house, and to make sure that our sewage system is prepared to handle our people. In most cases, we're using, for example, the surface water now. But the surface water sometimes is difficult to manage. Groundwater is much safer and easy to take care of to serve the population, especially for our rural areas. So I encourage you and I encourage those who have responsibility to handle those facilities to do their best and keep thinking outside the box so our people are served and properly served. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Great sharing the platform with you, and look forward to continue our discussion in person and online. It's been wonderful. I really enjoyed my evening tonight talking to our people. I think we owe it to our people every step of the way as public servant. We must be able to be accountable at all times when you are called on to tell the people exactly what it is that you are doing that's impacting their lives. So thank you, Sarah, for providing the platform. We've taken notes duly, then all of what you were saying. I've got my notepad here.
Okay, Bobby.
So get back to some of those things as we progress. Look, the month of March globally is declared a Water Action Month. The issue of water is still a global challenge. Over 900 million people still don't have access to clean drinking water globally. Liberia is just around 800,000 to almost 1 million. About 13% of our population still rely on not too safe water, that is surface water or contaminated water. If you go to the villages, they are not so lucky to have the Aqua Life bottle or the Bravo or the tap water from the kind of a reservoir. Some of them are still fetching water, so there is no way we should romanticize the serious challenge our people are facing. When a kid starts to die before their 5th birthday, it's always attributed to some kind of a witchcraft activity in the community, forgetting to know that the water, the very water that we are feeding our kids with, in those villages are a contributing factor to some of the, early child mortality. Having said that, this Water Action Month, we encourage the population to shed light, to raise awareness of the challenges of water. You may be living in a community where water used to be a serious challenge. For example, Peace Island. But today, the people of Peace Island are one of the best sources of drinking water. We put in it's a serious water facility on the island there. So you can also talk about it a lot. There were interventions of the Niger water. Liberia will be represented at the UN 2023 Water Conference, which starts on the 22nd of March on World Water Day to the 24th of March in New York. Liberia will be represented. And making a case. The Water Conference in New York is all about countries around the world making new commitments on how to achieve universal access to safe drinking water for citizens. And Liberia will be represented. We have submitted the commitment to the Office of His Excellency, the President, to ensure that he will get his blessing. We're also talking to him to lead the delegation. So if he's there, he will be, at the UN speaking. I cannot speak to his schedule right now, but we're making effort to see if we can get him there because some of his counterparts will be there. But trust me, there's a strong Liberian delegation that is going to be represented there at the UN conference, representing our country, making new commitments, lobbying our development partners for more Musabuk.
Huh?
So look,
Okay, Bobby, thank you very much. Look, I can't say how much I'm grateful for this show. I think it was a real good show. Next week, we're going to be a cloning program. We're going to call it Searching for the Soul of Liberia. You know, since the war, we've really been struggling to get back to normality. There are a lot of things that we left unattended. For example, reconciliation is still a challenge. There are those asking for accountability through war, economic crime court. There are some who are saying, let's move along. We're going to have an open discussion about some of these issues. How can we find a way to be able to move forward collectively as a people? So we have commitments from a few important panelists. We're trying to get a lot more of them. So keep tuned. It's next week, Sunday, 8 o'clock p.m. Monrovia time. I really like to again thank my guest, Dan Sayed, formerly of the Liberian Water and Sewer Corporation, and Bobby Whitfield, the head of the WASH Commission in Liberia. You guys do have a good Sunday. I made a commitment. There is this African American group out of Lansing, Michigan, that have been singing redemption songs, Black songs, since the period of the civil rights for 60 years. So they've announced that this is their last year together, and they're going to be having a concert shortly. And I made a commitment that I was going to run their songs. We've done a few of them. We'll end with one of them, their rendition of Something Inside So Strong. So thank you guys again for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's enjoy those groups, eh?
Sarah too, man.
Okay, man.
The further you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can't deny me, you can't decide to turn your face away. Something inside so strong, I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone, oh no. Something inside so strong, oh, something inside so strong.
The more you refuse to hear my voice, the louder I will sing.
I will sing, I will sing loud.
Hide behind walls of Jericho. Your lights will come tumbling.
Deny my place,
Deny.
my light
will shine
so brightly it will blind you. Something inside so strong,
something inside. Though you're doing me wrong, you thought that my pride oh no.
something inside
So strong.
inside so strong.
They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, a warrior, more than a survivor. You can thrive, transformed by adversity. You face every challenge thrown your way. Stand strong, you can overcome. They try to beat us down, but we rise above the struggle. Never giving up under pressure, we don't struggle. Instead, we discover gold inside as we realize no matter what, you'll never dull our shine.
Deny my
Place
place
inside.
inside.